Now, you have been a longtime attorney, and yes, I guess for me, the first question that comes to mind is what made you want to take on this role as superintendent?
Great question. For me, it's all about community. And yes, I have been a Virginia attorney for almost 37 years. And for most of that time, I've worked in local government. About half of my career has been spent in Spotsylvania. I would not be interested in this position anywhere else, but knowing this community and having the heart for this community and having interacted with the school division for years in my role as county attorney and then county administrator, I really came to believe that I can help the division forward, and I'm here because I want to help.
So let's talk about some of the challenges, right? What have been some of the challenges of this role, especially in light of what faces public schools today?
Well, in our community, resourcing for our school division has been a major issue, and there has been a struggle with the locality to try to increase investment in public education for many years. And in fact, I'm very proud of seeing that for the next upcoming fiscal year, we have secured the biggest local transfer for public education that our division has had in this century. So I'm very proud of that, very excited about it. That is a big challenge. The path forward post-COVID, learning recovery. Virginia is now at the bottom of national assessment statistics for math and reading in public education, 4th and 8th grade. We've got a lot of ground to make up. We are focusing on motivating and engaging and maximizing instructional potential to try to make up that ground in the year ahead. So those are big challenges, big ideas, and we're working at them 24/7.
Now, I want to get into some of the other challenges, individually as well. I come from a family of teachers. I hear a lot of different arguments on all sides, and we'll get to that. But I want to talk about the books because this has been something that you got national attention for. And it's not just your district. There are other districts looking at books and states looking at books as well that are in school libraries, curriculum, inappropriate.
Can I just jump on that and say that it is so sad to me personally that we have a conversation saying we are looking at books, when in fact we are looking at a tiny subset of books. There are about 390,000 volumes in our school libraries here in Spotsylvania County. The big discussion is over fewer than or around 100 of them. So there's only a tiny percentage that are of any concern, and the concern is about ensuring that our libraries, our school libraries, are safe spaces. Now, to be clear, I love books and I love ideas. I've spent my adult life using books and other resources to continue learning and to share and to persuade and to create compelling ideas in court and out of court, in local government, for the community, trying to move ideas forward. There are a few books that are potentially problematic, in fact, found to be problematic under law enacted in Virginia last year that requires parental notification and parental choice in advance of exposure to students of sexually explicit materials. And sexually explicit materials are carefully defined. They use a well-established state definition, and it's about what you would expect of sexually explicit, pictures, photographs, description of sex, and sex. And I hope we can leave that there for a moment, or if you'd like me to read the definitions, I have them here. I got them from a book. So the question is, will we have safe spaces for ideas in our libraries? And the problem is that we don't know what is in our libraries because books for years have gotten into the libraries based on short summary reviews. So these materials have come to be challenged because a parent, a loving Buddhist mom, found materials in the libraries that were unsettling to her, and that it turns out reach this definition of sexually explicit materials. And we did not have and do not have a mechanism for advance warning and allowing parental choice over exposure to these materials. And that's why they have been withheld, because there are things you can't unsee, there are things you can't undo. Some
Can
folks have
I,
said,
can
well,
I, well, I was
sure.
just going to add something to what you're saying, because I like that you sort of jumped on that, the looking at books thing. I would argue, and I can't speak for you, you are serving children, young kids, minors, right? So when that's your job as educators, as a school district, it makes sense to be looking at the books to make sure they're appropriate. I mean, to me, it's so shocking to me that some of these things are just coming to light. Some of these issues with books that may have been there for a long time, based on those summaries, right? So it actually seems appropriate to be, assessing, are these books appropriate for children in a school? And what you were just saying is that without a mechanism for parental choice, right? So a parent could say, oh, my kid could read that. The best thing to do is to then take some of those books out to protect children, right? That would be an accurate sort of summary.
Absolutely. And and some of the critics of the decisions we've made have said, well, these books are really about activating opportunities for parents to have conversations with their children. Well, I would respond to that by saying that waiting until after your child has had sex to have a conversation about purity and virginity and about sex, that's getting things out of order. Having the materials accessible in the libraries within reach for the children before there is any notification to the parent, then the material exists, and an opportunity for them to control the access to the materials. That's getting the cart before the horse. That's getting the information sharing in the wrong order. And that's really what the law is about in Virginia, is about making parents aware so that they can make an informed choice about their child's access to sexually explicit materials.
So if somebody comes to you, and you've heard this, and they say, you're banning books, that's what you're doing here. You've removed these books from the libraries, you're banning them. How do you respond to that claim?
Well, first of all, I think it's a patently absurd point. My sphere of responsibility is the school division alone. And the school libraries are part of our division. They're a treasured part of our division. But here's reality. The books that have been removed from the school libraries are available in the public library in our communities. And those same materials and much, much more is available online through the internet. So I'm not to think I'm banning anything. I am simply trying to live up to the mandate under state law to ensure parental choice about exposure to sexually explicit materials. And I am trying to do that in the spirit of maintaining our school libraries as a safe space for our children and for ideas.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to take that argument to the, extreme of, well, anything should be available in schools then, right? I mean, obviously there are things that shouldn't be available in school libraries. And so looking at that and assessing that, and like you said, that's your purview. And these things are available in other libraries and in other locations. I wanted to talk about some of the other pushback. This is something I hear very frequently, and it is an interesting argument to me, because I look at the public school system, and there are lots of wonderful public schools. There are also a lot of underperforming schools, and there are a lot of reasons for that around the country. But a lot of people will push back if somebody wasn't a teacher, or they weren't a principal, or they didn't have some specific role in a school and they're running a school system. People will push back on that. And you face some of that pushback. You face a lot of pushback in this. What do you think drives some of the pushback that you have received?
Sad to say, but I'm concerned that it would be simple self-protective resistance to transparency. And in fact, public schools are a public enterprise. In Virginia, the school division is a political subdivision of the Commonwealth of Virginia. We are an arm of the state or a child of the state, just like the governments of cities, counties, and towns in Virginia are children of the state, if you will. And so we have the same responsibility of transparency and accountability to our communities as the local governments do. And I think it's important, frankly, to open up the closed guild of education and to be willing to have open and positive, I hope, conversations about the enterprise of public education, what we're doing here, and what our future holds. Because it's very clear from the national statistics from last November that we must improve, and we desperately want to improve. And I have a suspicion that doing more of the way we've always done it may not be the best path forward. Now, I'm not reflexively dismissing or throwing out anything or anyone, but I want to look carefully and assess the effectiveness of various strategies and come up with a best path forward that represents the most efficient use of the taxpayers' money.
No, that makes sense. And I have to ask you, because I know that you're a person of faith, you're a Christian. Do you think any of your pushback has been a result of that, especially dealing with books and the themes that we're talking about? Do you think that's been any part of that pushback?
Frankly, I rather doubt it, and because I've been a professional working in local government space for more than 3 decades, and I fully understand how to where my boundaries are and to not proselytize in my public space. Now, with that said, it fascinates me, and I'm in a state of wonderment over where the Christian community is on some of these issues, because, as I mentioned, the one challenger of the books in our community has been a very kind and well-intentioned Buddhist mom. And so I would say at this point, this is not a Christian issue as it's framed in our community right now. It's not a religious issue, really. It's framed under the law, but it's a public conversation that has left me wondering where the moral voices are, where the ethical voices are in our community in this conversation, because I think it's a conversation that needs to be engaged in the social context as well as in the context of the state law that we're applying.
Yeah, I mean, it is incredibly disturbing that we've landed where we are, that we're even having to have the conversations that we're having about these contents, these books, the curriculum, the other things that are going on around the country right now. It's a little shocking that we've even gotten to this place that we are. But I have to ask you, just as a final question, at the end of the day, when all is said and done and you are done with this role as superintendent, what are you hoping to leave behind as a legacy?
I'm hoping to leave behind joy. I'm hoping to leave behind accomplishment in this division that has achieved a more businesslike and orderly approach to the fundamental operations, really the back of the house operations, finance, and other support structures in the division that make it all go. I want to leave behind an improved maintenance department and a clearer capital plan toward the future of buildings and other assets needed to move this division forward into the future. And I want to leave behind an energized instructional staff that has a more refined vision of the mission of the division, and it's beginning to get some traction in the post-COVID world on the improvement of our performance as a division and real recovery from the learning loss that was suffered here due to COVID.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. It's certainly an uphill battle. There's a lot with COVID, all the things you mentioned for districts across the country. I appreciate your explanations and your time today.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your time and this opportunity.